Congressman, how you doing this afternoon?
Hey, I'm doing great, Casey. Great to be back home and working in the district today.
Oh, you're finally back. You're out of the swamp, huh? Good for you.
Yes.
It's been a busy couple weeks. I mean, let's be honest. I guess can we just start with the budget? Let's just start there. We'll just roll our way through it. Lot of discrepancy and I think a lot of wordplay in how the Senate versus the House were doing it. The House obviously wanted $1.5 trillion in cuts. The Senate would only commit to a minimum of $4 billion. Of course, a lot of people are like, well, that's a lot of alleyway there, and it's a minimum of $4 billion. Yeah. But
right.
A lot of members of the House were like, okay, well, if you're going to start so low, we don't think you're going to get close to $1.5 trillion. It passed. So can you just kind of explain to everybody like what's going on here and what this actually means?
Yeah, well, it's complicated, especially because of the Senate rules. With reconciliation, that is because of the Senate. To be able to get around the 60-vote threshold that the Senate has in order to shut debate down.
Okay.
We don't have 60 votes, so therefore we have to go this pathway of reconciliation. The Democrats used it for Obamacare. We used it for the Trump tax cuts back in 2017. So it's been done before, probably once every 5 years. It depends on whether you have the kind of the trifecta with controlling the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Well, in this case, we do. So our plan is to get around that 60-vote threshold and not let Chuck Schumer and the Democrats stop it just with a cloture vote. Once you get past the cloture vote, then it's just a simple majority. Then you just need 51, and that's when even if it's a tie, Vice President could come in and break the tie. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and their rules also are different with the parliamentarian. Casey, I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of us.
Okay.
But it's like, how does all of this? Why does the parliamentarian have so much control and power? The Senate operates on their history. They operate on precedent, and so they operate on all these different rules. So this is how I've been trying to describe it. The House, we run on a simple majority, so we just needed a simple plurality, and we were able to get the $1.5 trillion and up to $2 trillion, depending on the tax cuts and how much those are extended or made permanent. The Senate, and this is where every senator on our side will tell us, look, we know $4 billion is not the number. That is just where we had to start to get it past the parliamentarian, to get the process rolling. We're all going to be aiming for those same numbers. Now, Mike Lee voted for it, Ted Cruz. The only conservative that didn't vote for it was Rand Paul. But,
which is normal.
Right, yeah. And so with all the other conservatives voting for it, I think that all shows us that that's the end goal. This is not the law. This is simply unlocking the rules on how we're going to structure the budget bill, and that's what we're going to be working on over the next 4 months into the August break. So we have got to get this done because September is when the budget runs out at the end of September. And so now all the keys are unlocked. All the committees can do their work, make the cuts, have those negotiations between House, Senate, and the White House, and get to that $1.5 trillion. I hope. I mean, there's a lot of trust right now in the Senate version, but we all have had those conversations, and they keep telling us, especially with new Senate Leader John Thune, that is the goal, to get to $1.5 trillion in cuts.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, we're not actually doing it yet. I know it's going to come in September, but why are the numbers so different? And even I was having some difficulty even explaining it to people. I could explain the minimum of $4 billion, which, okay, you start there, but that's still a huge gap. So thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that. Let's move on to the SAVE Act. This one, 208 Democrats voted against requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. And I've been beating this drum for a very, very long time. Somebody comes from the Southwest where illegal voting is very, very common. A lot of times you get, people who are not from the United States who do vote illegally. People don't realize, and I've gotten in this argument many, many times with people, even online, Congressman, people don't realize there are ways for you to register in every state without proving that you're eligible to vote in a federal election. And some states have tried to take extra steps, and the courts have even ruled that they're not allowed to for a federal election. So there's this misconception that, well, if I go to register and I happen to go to the BMV or the DMV and they have all of this requirements, then really those requirements are what's there. But you can register online and you don't have to provide any of that proof. So how important was it to get the SAVE Act done? And has there been any reasonable explanation from the Democrats on the other side, other than the usual stupid talking points, as to why they oppose this?
No, there wasn't. I mean, we've all known, and should be a unifying issue to all agree on, that we don't want non-citizens voting in America's elections. I mean, Casey, it seems like we could just sit down and say over a cup of coffee, it's like, hey, if we're going to be starting a country here, let's say that only the citizens can vote in our elections. That seems like a good idea. And I think the founding fathers, they probably didn't have much disagreement over that one. I mean, they were saying, no, actually, there's only, certain people can vote in the election. It wasn't even the citizens. It was more, discerning than that. But that's where we're at today, is citizens in America should be the only people to vote in America's elections. And the other thing that the SAVE Act did is it requires states to start cleaning their voter rolls. And states like Alabama's already done it, several thousand that they cleaned off. A couple of other states have already started the process cleaning. I mean, anywhere between 4,000 to 10,000 people who aren't either alive or they're not eligible to vote off the voter rolls. And to me, this is just common sense. I mean, let's say, hey, you know what? We may disagree on a lot of other issues, but let's make sure that our elections are as accurate and full of integrity as possible, to make sure that we don't prevent somebody who should be voting by allowing those who are illegal and are voting. That cancels out those who are legal. I mean, up in Detroit, I'm good friends with Pastor Lorenzo Sewell. He prayed at President Trump's inauguration, and he's from Detroit. And he's like, Marlon, we know there are almost 50,000 people who did not vote because they already had their votes cast by the time they went in to vote. Somebody else stole their registration and voted for them. So we've got problems that need to be solved.
And I'm going to one-up you a little bit. I don't know if you've seen this, but Arizona, after a successful lawsuit by America First Legal, they are now going to start removing about 50,000 non-citizens from their voter rolls.
Wow.
So they had to be sued to even do this. And this has been an issue in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico for many, many years. And 50,000, we're talking about a state in 2020 went by, a couple thousand, something like that. So, this, you got, Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, really weird stuff with Gretchen Whitmer lately. But Michigan, we know for a fact that they let non-citizens vote and that they allowed the votes to stand. It started with that one Chinese student, but now they've admitted there's at least 15. Of course, who knows how many there actually are. So this is something that clearly had to be dealt with. And I was just kind of curious, just like in the hallways, like if you had any Democrat actually give you a real reason why they were opposing it, or if it's just the same old nonsense because they want to cheat. Also getting this, too, with tariffs. First of all, the markets are up again today. So that's nice. We were telling everybody that, hey, be patient. It's going to turn around. But Kelly Loeffler's announcing that we're now up to $5 trillion in new investments and trade commitments since the 20th of January. $5 trillion in new. And the tariff thing had some people kind of freaked out. People's Temu orders are taking a little longer to get. They don't really know what that means. I know that the marijuana industry, which surrounds Indiana, doesn't necessarily impact us all that much. They're concerned about the supply chain. Talk a little bit about the tariffs and how things are going there.
Yeah, I would say this, Casey, that Made in America is making a comeback. How many times have we all said, we need to buy American, buy American? Well, now we have a president who is actually making sure that America has a level playing field, so that way we can buy American. And for so many decades, we have allowed other countries and allies. These are our allies. These are friends, friendly countries like Japan, like Australia, like European Union countries that sell us cars, sell us beef, sell us all this manufactured goods. And then, of course, China, which we know manipulates their currency. They don't follow any environmental standards that any of us agree with. They, of course, use their people, abuse their people, and cheap labor. And but we have built these other countries' economies over time, and President Trump has finally called everybody's bluff, and he's winning. And I just think it's good for, especially us here in the Midwest and the Heartland, Casey. You and I, we've both watched manufacturing companies leave. I mean, back when we were during the whole free trade agreement conversation, which I agree with. It's like, yeah, I do agree with free trade around the world, but there can't be barriers and disadvantages for the United States to be able to sell our product somewhere else.
Right.
I mean,
that's not
if
free
China
trade.
wants to make the widgets,
Yeah.
that's right. If China wants to make the widgets, well, we should be able to make the machines that make the widgets. Or even if we want to compete on widgets, we should still be able to do that. And even if we use our competitive advantages to beat them, or they have competitive advantages to beat us. So Trump is actually leveling the playing field and bringing Made in America back.
Now, I don't know if this is necessarily in your wheelhouse, and I don't even know that it's been confirmed yet, but I've seen rumors floating around that China is quietly threatening to increase the supply of fentanyl to the region as a version of one-upping the tariff situation. Let's just say that that's true, since we've caught them working with the cartels previously. Has there been any rumblings about that in Congress? Is anybody prepared for what that next step might actually have to look like?
I don't know on that, but I would not be surprised, because I do have on good authority that they have been shipping in all of these chemicals, and I don't vape, so I don't know what all those pieces are.
Yeah.
But the liquid, all of those, they are dumping into the United States a bunch of junk that goes into the vaping industry. So I would not be surprised that they do the same thing with fentanyl, because I'm convinced, and I think hopefully we'll be able to track it down and find it, that China's already inside the United States doing a lot of nefarious deeds. Whether it's even potentially spreading bird flu, I don't have solid evidence, but we've seen drone activity. We've seen some weird things going on. We'll find out. I've been passing that information along to look into, but I
know
would
a
not
lot
be
of it's
surprised.
rumor right now, but just wanted to check.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't put it past them.
All right. I wish I had time to talk to you about energy regulations, because that's a big one too, especially considering what Indiana's looking at doing here in the near future. But Congressman, we're out of time today, man. Thank you so much for your patience and for reaching out to us and making sure that every couple of weeks we get at least a few moments with you.